March Forward Girl by Melba Patillo Beals. Read by Mr. Townsend, 8th grade ELA, AGW. Chapter 10, Becoming a Real Student. Somehow, Mr. Robinson's struggle to become a member of the baseball team lit my freedom candle. It signaled that I was filled with hope once more. Life seemed to move forward smoothly for almost a month. Yes, there was a reason to struggle for freedom, and it would come in God's time. We simply had to remain on guard and arm our warriors with strength and hope to prepare for the big battle still to come. Until then, we had to be ready to fight all the little battles we face daily to stay alive. At school, I began measuring time by my grade reports every 6 weeks and by the huge red X I would put on the calendar every day. It took a long time, but I stopped worrying so much about getting rid of the white people. I never gave up totally on being free and being equal, but rather each time white folks' shenanigans made me crazy, I tried to ignore that feeling and tuck it in the back of my mind. Instead of getting angry, I prayed for understanding. I told myself that this was today, and by tomorrow, our lives were all going to be so much better. Summer came. The flowers bloomed and the sun stayed out longer as the school semester came to an end. With school out, there was so much extra time and nothing to do, with only Conrad and Grandma around. Grandma had quit her day job to be with us, so I spent a lot of time helping her in the garden. Summers were lonely, though, with only Sunday school and vacation Bible school to attend, and not a lot of friends around otherwise. Mother attempted to keep us busy. We were directed to read a book a week and write a book report to be delivered to her verbally each Friday. Mother spent her time in school during the summer, taking graduate-level courses. Grandma's solution to keeping us busy was setting up what she called a home systems program. She said, "You can never get away with not being able to take care of yourselves." She slowly taught us to iron, wash clothes, and take care of the house by dusting, sweeping floors, and watering the more than 100 indoor plants she kept. We also learned to cook and how to stretch the food budget. I liked baking gingerbread cookies best. Conrad's favorite to bake was butter cookies. One summer, she had us create our own gardens. I planted tomatoes, lettuce, peas, and collard greens in my garden. "Great, child, you've been watching me," Grandma said, folding her apron over her arm. There was a whole group of women who shared their seeds with us, so we had many good choices. She taught us to sew and to knit and crochet. There were quilting sessions with Grandma's friends. She said that there was no reason why men shouldn't be proficient at these chores, so Conrad learned everything I did. The summer did drag on, and we were very chipper when it came to an end. Back at school, more and more people were becoming my friends. The more I kept my complaints about how white people treated us to myself, the more my social life improved. The small group of my friends seemed to have the same goals: to behave appropriately and make good grades. I valued my membership in that group and received adult approval daily. There was little talk these days of our rights being taken away, and no talk of how we went to separate schools. Even though we had only old, torn books, typewriters with broken keys, and tables with 3 legs carted over from the white school every September as though we were the junkyard. There was only talk of what white people wanted and how they expected us to behave. It was as though we were studying their request, even at school, for we certainly didn't want to upset any of them. This was not the first time in my young life that I had done so. Even so, I was desperate to find out where the many, many rules that they controlled us with came from. Were they in a book issued from heaven? Who got to make the rules up? And how did you add to them or take away from them? If God really loved us equally, where was our rule book for them? I stopped talking to Grandma about my dissatisfaction with white people and their rules. Instead, I wanted to review and memorize all the rules so I could obey them and avoid confrontations, because I didn't want to be carted away forever or killed like Mr. Harvey. If that happened, I would have lived my entire life under the unfair and unequal rules that white people created. Before death, I told myself I would get to enjoy just one day of being equal and feeling equal. That was the hope I held on to, no matter what. As time passed, I grew more mature and more aware of the sacrifice it had taken for my people to live and grow up in the South all those many years before me. I began to read more of the history of my people. I often felt disappointed in my own good girl behavior, but I didn't know what else to do in order to help us move further ahead. I spent hours trying to figure out what I must do to rescue myself while not endangering my family or anyone around me. I threw my interest and energy into school and homework. I remained an outsider with just a small handful of friends, never invited to join the popular party kids in their very exclusive groups. At first, my feelings were hurt. I was left out of the maypole dance because the teacher said I was a head taller than most of the boys in the class. The same thing happened with the Broadway dance show and every group performance being planned. Her excuse was always that my early body development made me look older than the rest of the class, so I became accustomed to the fact that I would be left behind. But when exam results were read aloud, I knew for certain I would never be left behind. I worked hard to ensure that I would always earn A's. During the summer when I was 8, my family went by train to St. Louis to see some of our cousins. The porters brought us food from the dining car because we couldn't go through the white-occupied cars to the dining room. Everything was separated on that train. We only briefly saw anybody white on the train. Sometimes a porter walked through the car with a real hot meal that was being served in the dining car. That made me realize that there on the train as well, we were not being treated as equals. We had cold sandwiches, ate at our seats. Why didn't we deserve hot dishes? When we reached St. Louis, we saw that there was some freedom for our people. It was exciting not to see those horrid white-only signs anywhere. There are restaurants with nice sections for us. People in St. Louis seemed to accept us and never called us names. We didn't have to step off the sidewalks for them. Our people didn't seem afraid. As evening approached, they left their lights on, kept the shades open, and sat on their porches. There were even clubs and bars where both white and black people went together. In St. Louis, we didn't feel the white people were smothering us, circling all around, telling us what to do. I got to ride on a merry-go-round for the first time, and nobody stared. Everybody smiled. I wanted to get my favorite things, a peppermint stick and a dill pickle. Mama gave me the money and I could pay for them myself. When I went to the store to get them, no one pushed me out of line for anyone else. The store clerk even talked to me and took the money right out of my hand. Here, for the first time, I found that I could live a different way. The Little Rock feeling of fear was gone after 2 days. It seared my heart and soul when we had to go back to Little Rock again. Getting on the train, I felt this heavy shadow come over me. It was like a curtain had been lowered in front of me, covering my soul. The closer we got to Little Rock, the more I saw my mother and grandmother losing their power as adults, acting more like children or humble servants. The only bright spot on our return to Little Rock was passing my father out in a vast field of train cars. He was dressed in his overalls and working at his job. Conrad and I thought it was a nice surprise and we were happy to see him. Then we became sad yet again when we remembered he wouldn't be at home when we got there, and we weren't seeing him very often anymore. When the train pulled into Little Rock, we were separated from the white people again. We had our own exit door from the train, no porters to help us, as they were busy with the white passengers. And once again, the separate, dreary waiting room to go through as we left the station. St. Louis had been like a trip to paradise. I really wanted out of Little Rock, but Mother said we were there among family and friends, with jobs, and it would be too difficult to move us as a family. Little Rock was what she knew, where she was comfortable. It was good being back at school with friends and lots of work to occupy my mind. Schoolwork was my escape. I kept myself busy so I wouldn't think too much about Little Rock or the dream of leaving here. The first weeks of school passed quickly with lots of homework and chores. The studies were different with the new school year, and the teachers' expectations of me were different. Like a whirlwind, time passed, and it was Thanksgiving, with the aroma of turkey and Grandma's baking filling the house. Then before I knew it, I was looking forward to my birthday in December. I was expecting God to do something special on this birthday.